The Smoke Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening. How you doing? Fade to Black. Today's Wednesday, September 25th, 2024. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Let's do this, man. I think I'm good to go. I think I'm too many buttons to click before they show. Man, if it was just like one pat, man, it'd be great. All right. What an amazing week on Fade to Black. Monday, Jason quit Conspiracy 13. Last night, Robert Grant. Tonight, I'm very excited. Andy Marciel is with us. And we were just talking before the show. I've been a fan of his for a long time. This is great to have Andy on with us. Tonight, we're going to be discussing UFOs, USOs, and UAPs, and much more. And, of course, those Homeland Security videos. And, and the story behind that. We'll do all of that tonight with Andy. Tomorrow night, another big night. Eben Alexander is with us. Neuroscientist, neurosurgeon, NDE. We're going to discuss all of that and his life and, of course, his best-selling book, Proof of Heaven. And that is tomorrow night right here on Fade to Black. Tonight, though, it is Andy Marciel. Now, before we get started, I do want to say, and I kind of, I sound a little cavalier this afternoon when I said, we're on this hurricane watch, and that's what the media does to us. But this is shaping up to be something that is potentially very devastating, and it's going to, I'm talking about, of course, Helena, that will hit landfall tomorrow evening, Thursday. Right now, it has been raised to a Category 4. We'll see what happens by the time it makes landfall tomorrow, but they're expecting in excess of 130 mile per hour winds. And it's a very, very large storm. When you look at the satellite imagery, it's like it takes up the entire Gulf of Mexico. And that is getting ready to happen tomorrow. So our thoughts and prayers are with everybody that is being affected right now by this hurricane with like zero time to prepare. It just went from nothing to something so quickly, and instead of a week or two to prepare, you've got a couple of days, a couple of dozen hours, and that is just crazy to me. So, and it's expected to go all the way up to like Indianapolis. It's a tropical depression, lots of rain in an area that's already saturated. So again, our thoughts and prayers with everybody out there. All right, so let's get the show started. Tonight, Andy Marciel joins us. We're going to talk about his journey as an experiencer and how his life-altering encounters led him to meet filmmaker Darcy Weir. Everybody knows Darcy. And they have made two films which showcase Andy's investigations into the mysterious UAP videos released by the Department of Homeland Security. We're going to go through all of that tonight and much more. He's got 20 years of experience going into research, and he is driven by a deep sense of purpose like we all are. All right. Now, I've got a link below, also over on our website and throughout social media, where you can go out and check out the films. And with that, I want to say welcome for the first time. There he is right there, Andy Marciel. Andy, this is the first time you've been on the show.
This is.
It's one of, I'm just welcome, and you get the first time guest disclaimer. So let me get that out of the way first before I forget. because I'm so excited. Andy, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. And where the conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, it ends. But we're going to end as friends. Now you have to accept so we can move forward.
Absolutely.
Oh, man, that was too easy, man. And you're Puerto Rican. Aren't you supposed to just like joust with me just a little bit? Haggle somewhat? Here's the deal. And in fairness and transparency to the audience, I'm walking through the studio. This is just 10 minutes ago, everybody. 5 minutes before showtime. I'm walking through the studio and went, wait a minute. Stop. And I dialed in Andy. I go, dude, you're that I saw. And he goes, yeah, that was me. And I got to tell you, man, you whipped out some pretty good stuff back then. And the videos were very compelling. And I watched them a few times and I became a fan. And then poof, right? And so take me, we're gonna go back 20 years. We'll go back to the beginning. But let's talk about that for a second, because the videos, your personality came through, your concern came through, your knowledge came through, and you had a certain swagger and assertiveness, going at this that I really, really enjoyed. And the community, I think, always needs more of that. Sometimes we can be a little dry, if you know what I mean. But those videos were excellent. And then and got a lot of traction and went viral. But then everything stopped. So can we go back to that time period and walk us through it and what happened?
Yeah. So, I mean, those videos basically came to me through my Instagram. It was sent to me first through cell phone recordings. And, when I saw them, I immediately knew I was seeing something interesting, but I didn't want to jump to conclusion, because you know how it is with this subject. You get a lot of people sending a lot of bull crap and, fake nonsense. So before I kind of jumped the gun and got excited, I made sure to vet this individual thoroughly. And I didn't know at the time why, but he felt very comfortable with me and provided me everything down to his birth certificate to prove, who he was. So, I was satisfied with that. And eventually he then told me he had other videos and showed me a few clips of those from a cell phone recording also of his office. And next thing you know, I was able to convince him to get me the originals, and I got an email link, and poof, there were these videos on my lap, and I was like in shock, honestly, because like you said, I've been researching this for myself now for a very long time, and when I realized what I had in my possession, I knew that I had to do something with them. And the most important one was the rubber duck, which was 60 minutes long. And, even Tic Tac, Gimbal, and all those, as popular as they are, were only not even a full minute long, if I'm not mistaken, So here I am sitting on original raw files, unedited, unaltered, nothing. And I'm like, okay, I got to do something. So I ended up reaching out to the SCU, Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, and spoke to Peter Reale and believe Robert Powell at one point as well. Told them about the videos. They were interested because if you don't already know, they're the group that did the first analysis, I think the only analysis on the 2013 Aguadilla footage, which is, in my opinion, one of the best pieces of evidence in existence right now out there. So that video, believe it or not, is their how can you say, it's basically like their golden child, I guess you could say. If any video doesn't come up to those standards, they're not interested.
Yeah, holy grail status. Yeah, for sure.
There you go. So when they saw this, and they saw the amount of time and length that the video was, and the fact that out of the 60 minutes, 40 of those minutes was capturing this object. They were very interested and ended up telling me they wanted to do the analysis. They vetted the source themselves and were satisfied with what they got from him, and went ahead with the analysis. The issue was that during that time, it took them a while to do, which is understandable. But you know how the community is. Once I mentioned the fact that I got my hands on these, it was relentless, the attacks and getting me to put it out there. And I'm trying to explain, like, I'm trying to do the right thing by getting this analyzed properly before just throwing it out there like that. So when I finally did get the okay to release it from SCU, because the analysis was done, my God, I'm over here thinking I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm not a big name or anything like that, but here I am. I landed this, important information, important evidence, and to have seen the reaction that I got from not just the community, but a lot of people that I looked up to in the UFO field, people that I used to follow all the time, to hear what they were saying and the attacks that they were doing, towards me was really, really disappointing, and it was disheartening. And I come from, my reason or my purpose, my drive for all this is not just because I'm interested in it, it's because I've actually had very close personal experiences with this. So this is way more personal for me. So me doing it the way I did it, I'm thinking I was doing something positive. And the reaction, although I did get a lot of positive reaction, the majority of it though was, as you already know, the toxicity and all that crap. And it did impact me negatively because it showed me the real issue with this subject, and it's people, and it's how people react and how people behave with one another when it comes to this, that we're not really getting ahead, that we're not where we should be with this subject because of that, and I speak up a lot about that because I know people personally who have other, information that is very helpful for this, and other people who potentially have more evidence who don't want to come forward because they don't want to deal with that, So that was the reason why I ended up, the first time I posted the videos, I took them off, and they had hundreds of thousands of views in a matter of hours. I was getting messages from people in Africa and in high positions telling me, thank you for doing this and stuff like that. But to prove a point, because I didn't like the fact that I was being labeled all these, things like grifter, that I was trying to make money. It got me upset. And I know I allowed it to let it get to me, but it was personal to me. And I just took them off to prove a point. I was like, you know what? Screw it. Like, if this is the reaction that we're going to get trying to do the right thing, then you know what? This isn't something I want you guys to have.
It's so hard, Andy. And this is a subject I talk about just as much as the UFO phenomenon or physics or science or any of that, exoplanets. And you know what I talk about probably just as much is you have to develop the ability to ignore negative bullshit. And it's hard. It's hard because you want to defend yourself, and things, but it takes you off of the target. And it was something that I was told by a couple of people that mentored me many years ago. And they had told me, they said, Jimmy, you're about to enter into another level of things. And listen, critics don't exist. Negativity doesn't exist. Don't pay attention to it. Don't the static. Don't do it. You're going to want to do it. Don't do it. It'll ruin you. And it was the best lesson I ever had. And it's a tough one. It's a tough one, man. And I totally get it. And you would think that in this community, the people that are in this community are here for deeply personal and passionate reasons. Okay. And that everybody has an open mind, just like you do, and that it's all cool in this sphere. There is a lot of emotion that flies around here. And it's probably more toxic here than the NFL, right? Sports fans. Yeah. You wouldn't think that. You know, this community should be a bit different, but it's not, and it's because of all of the deep personal reasons that people are involved with this subject. And it's very tough to ignore the negative stuff, but you just have to do it. So you worked your way through it, though.
Well, here's the thing, and I know what you're trying to say, because I was told this by a lot of people when it was happening to me, and I agree, I get it, but I have a different perspective when it comes to the subject and when it comes to this phenomenon, because I look at it based off of what had happened to me in my life. So it's like almost like a door kicked open that was closed before, and I see things differently because of it. So the reason why it bothered me so much is because if we're being visited by an extraterrestrial race or multidimensional or ultra-terrestrial, whatever you want to call them, they're looking at this. You understand? They're seeing this. They're observing this themselves. You understand? And that's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing. What do they see right through their lens? You know what they see? They almost see the kid playing the banjo on the front porch in the movie Deliverance. Right? I mean, it's kind of like that, you know, and as sophisticated as we think we are, just think about it, you know, just place yourself outside of Earth and just look back at us and see what drives us. The Kardashians, right? P. Diddy.
I mean,
the wars. It's nuts. It's crazy to me.
I mean, that's like I said, one of the reasons why I always bring it up in talks, because I feel like a lot of people in the community don't focus on it as much as they should, because, you know, when you think about, again, if we are being visited or if we are sharing this planet with something, we have to really acknowledge that part about us, because it's possibly one of the reasons why they want nothing to do with us, and they are staying the distance that they stay away from us. I don't blame them.
I would.
People myself.
Yeah,
exactly.
Jeez. Oh man. Yeah. I mean, just pick, you know, some gun chewing, cigarette smoking, used car salesman in any country, right?
I know.
Is that what they see? Is that what they think? Oh, you know, I think about that all the time. Or saleswoman too. Let's not just throw us dudes in that car. But think about that for a second. And I totally agree. And my experiences, now I want to talk about yours. My personal experiences and the things that I've seen, I didn't know originally if I wanted to talk about this stuff in public. You know, I'm a host. I've got a large platform and a big audience. So do I remain objective and not talk about my own personal experiences and just, you know, and do my own research through the interviews? Or do I just come out of the closet with it and then kind of brace myself for what's about to happen? And so it's something that we should all be concerned about. But my own personal experiences are what drives me today. I know that I've seen stuff that I cannot explain, and I'm not being told the truth about it. So I am on my own journey. And that's what happened to you, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's we're all on our own journey. That's the thing. Like I've come to the conclusion that this isn't going to be a worldwide thing. I think it's more about the individual and what they're willing to accept in regards to the, reality. You know what I mean? And, what I went through, that kind of, again, like I said, it just like, it opened up a door that my whole perspective on life just went whoop, turned upside down, because I don't know if you want to hear the story. I can tell it to you real quick.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
So this actually, I had my very first encounter with something. One of my very earliest childhood memories occurred while living in Puerto Rico. I lived in Aguada, right next to Aguadilla. And I remember visiting family up in the mountains of Atalaya. That's where my grandma used to live. And we had, family and friends up there. And for years, it's the only memory I can recall from that age that is as vivid as like it happened yesterday. And I can never understand why. But it wasn't until, I got a little older and started thinking back at it. And I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. I used to attribute it to a plane. But what I remember is that I was outside playing at night in the front porch, and something told me to look up. And when I looked up, right above me, it wasn't high up in the air, it was very, very low, like probably 50, 60 feet right above me, was a dark object, a black object. And it was very big because I had to look side to side to see the entire thing. And remember, red lights at each point, and there were 3 points that I can remember. So the image I get in my mind every time I think of this was a triangular object, and there was no sound. So that's when I started, like as I got older, I'm like, it couldn't have been a plane, because if it was that low, I would have known. And just remember that this object kind of just started moving in front of me and shot off into the distance, and that was it. But this followed me throughout my entire life, but the most significant experience I had was around 1992 here on Long Island. And I was in the pool, it was summer. I had my cousin in the pool with me, we were playing, and clear skies, not a single cloud in the sky. And again, I had something kind of tell me to look up, and I happened to glance up, and right above my house, like I would say 150, 200 feet away, was a disc. The best I could describe it is like Bob Lazar's sports model. And no lights on it. It was just there, static, sitting right over the house. And I look to my left, and I see that my cousin is staring at it too. And that's when I kind of realized, all right, I'm not going crazy. This thing is really there. It had it looked metallic. It reminded me of the DeLorean, like the surface texture, that brushed aluminum look.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Again, no lights, and I couldn't see any seams or nothing. I was only able to see a portion of the top from the perspective and the angle I was at, but I could see the entire bottom was all smooth, no sound or nothing, and it was like, again, absolutely still. But the weirdest part, I always say this every time I tell a story, is when it started to move. So basically, it went from an absolute standstill. And have you ever played air hockey, when the air puck is just floating there and you kind of give a little tap and it just starts to move like that? That's the best way I could explain of how this thing just began to move. Like something tapped it and it just started slowly moving to the left of us, which was east. So I kept staring at this thing, and at one point the sun's light reflected off of it, which is more information unless you know this is really there. And it just kept on hovering at the same speed. I would have to estimate maybe like 10, 15 miles per hour was moving from the distance, and just continued in its direction and disappeared over the tree line. But the interesting thing is that it wasn't until years later when I started my page on Instagram, actually only about maybe 5 years ago, and mind you, I started because of this, and my experiences were not good growing up after this, because it messes with your mind and nobody believes you. You have nobody to talk to. So because of all those experiences, I decided to start a page to try to reach out to people who have had experiences, to basically let them know you're not crazy, you know. Somebody reached out to me hearing my story, who ended up telling me that they saw the same object. They believe it was the exact same object, exact year, over in Brookhaven, that he saw it with his whole family. Same time, had the exact same craft and everything. And that's when I found out that during that time, from him, I didn't know about this. Long Island had its own Roswell incident out in Brookhaven.
In Brookhaven, that's a very, 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 very famous case. Probably made more famous, aside from the murder plot and everything else that was going on around it, is the laboratory that's there. It's one of the most advanced facilities in the United States. And this happened adjacent to that in the forest, in the park, outside of the laboratory.
Yeah. So I saw it before the incident. So could it be that the object I saw was the same one that came down? I'm not sure. I can't honestly say. But I found it incredibly amazing that not only did this witness reach out to me telling me he saw it, but then told me about that incident that I had no clue about. And then to make matters even crazier, a year after meeting him, I met an individual, retired CIA, who I had the pleasure of having a private one-on-one conversation with him. Unfortunately, I can't say the name, but this individual heard my story. I never told him about the witness, never told him about Brookhaven. And he stopped me and asked me, what year did it happen? You know, and I told him 92. And he told me, have I heard of the Brookhaven incident? And I started laughing. I'm like, yeah, just found out about it last year. So he confirmed to me that they, in fact, did investigate it, the CIA, and had instructed the facility to install cameras pointing towards the sky, because apparently this object had made multiple visits to the facility, and found out through him that they were doing experiments with a nuclear reactor at the time. So we all know they've been attracted to nuclear locations, which kind of made some kind of sense that they were getting those visits. But to get all of that, I guess, confirmation so many years after it happened, to me was mind blowing. Like I just couldn't believe it.
The shift that happens, and for you, this is 1992, and the Brookhaven and everything else that's around it. That's separate. But how did you start to deal with this? Well, you have your friends and family, of course, but did this push you into research and trying to figure out what was going on?
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding me? I grew up religious. I grew up Catholic. And then from being Catholic, I moved to Christianity. And I mean, I was a holy roller to the death. Like I was Bible toting everything, catching people, you know, falling from the spirit, you name it, I was doing it. But when this happened, all that went out the window, because I was like, what is that? It's not supposed to exist, but I'm staring at it. So that, like I said, it's like another good example is like opening up Pandora's box. You know, like, I mean, you just get flooded with all of these thoughts and these questions, because now something that doesn't exist was there. So what does that mean? So nothing started to make sense when I started going back to church. And that's what led me to really like investigate, okay, what happened, what went on. And that it didn't end there. I actually had two more major experiences after that.
What happened?
So a couple of weeks or maybe a few months after that incident, I had an incident in my room where something visited me, I guess you could say. I felt I got woken up in the middle of the night. I thought I heard a sound but felt something at the foot of the bed, like on my left side, almost like an impression, like something was pressing down on the bed. But at first I, kind of dismissed it, thinking it was maybe like my little sister walking around in the middle of the night. And I was awake, but I didn't have my eyes open. I was just conscious. So I'm laying there listening, and I couldn't hear anything. But then suddenly I feel another impression on the right side of my foot. So when I felt that, my heart started racing because I'm like, okay, I know I'm not imagining that. That just happened. So again, I'm laying there with my eyes closed, just trying to, convince myself that maybe I'm just imagining it or dreaming or, something like that. So I lay there again waiting, and I feel the impression on the left side of my bed move to my waist. And at that point, now I'm like sweating and I'm terrified. I don't want to open my eyes because I don't want to see what's in my room. Like your
Nope.
your brain starts filling in the gap with all the scary things you see, and I'm like,
Yep.
that's the last thing I want in my mind, right? So then the one on my right side moves to my waist, and I feel another two at the foot of my bed where the original ones were. So now there's four. So in my mind, the impression I'm getting is somebody on my bed, like, over me. Then the ones by my waist move to my shoulders, and then the ones by my feet move to my waist. So now at this point, I'm absolutely, I'm beyond terrified. My heart is racing so fast. I'm sweating. I tried to move at one point to see if I can, get something to happen. I couldn't even move my pinky. I felt like legitimately paralyzed with fear. And I then feel like if you close your eyes and move your hand to your face, you don't need to touch yourself to know that something's in front of you. So I feel that, and I can feel my breath bouncing off of something, and I can hear myself breathing bouncing off of something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a
So
little freaked out right now myself. And I need to look around, just make sure I'm cool. Okay, I'm cool. Continue. Woo!
so you could just imagine. I'm thinking, like, at that point, I'm thinking, okay, I'm about to die. Whatever this is it for me. I still was too afraid to open my eyes. Then all of a sudden I stopped breathing, but it wasn't from an external force. I stopped breathing. It felt like something was stopping my air, inside my airway. Like something inside my airway was stopping me from breathing. And I felt like I was drowning. So I was gasping for air. And at that moment, I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to die, I might as well open my eyes and see what's about to do it, So, right? I mean, what else am I going to do? So I sat up and opened my eyes and took a deep breath and ended up being in my room. Like, I look around and I was like, what the hell just happened? And I researched that, and I thought, trying to rationalize what the experience that just happened was through, maybe possible sleep paralysis. But then I started diving into abduction cases. And I was getting goosebumps. My hair stood up because I came across stories that were identical to mine, where people had their eyes open and described seeing what they saw. And then I met someone all the way across the planet in the Netherlands, and she told me her story, and we literally became best friends. I've never met this person, and we became best friends just from her experience being identical to mine. And it's impossible that so many people around the world, all these different locations, have experienced the exact same thing in the exact same manner. And some having seen what, was in the room doing it, and some even saying that they weren't even in the room. So there's a very good chance that I wasn't even in my room when it was happening. It's just that my brain remembered me being there last. And possibly what stopped me from breathing was maybe something that was being inserted into my esophagus. And then when I woke up, I just so happened to be in my room.
That's terrifying. And you know why it's terrifying? Because you're not in control.
Yeah.
You weren't injured, right? You know what I mean? It's not like there are other things that could be terrifying, like being abducted by a serial killer and locked up in a basement for 3 months, right? And crazy. We've all seen that movie. In this situation, the terrifying part is that you're not in control. And you know what I stopped doing? Well, I don't think I've ever done it. I don't turn around and look anymore. I don't want to know. Something strange. I feel something strange. I get a hand in the back, whatever it is. You know what? Do your thing. I'm not looking. I don't want to see it. I don't. I had a friend over this weekend, Lisa, and she's probably listening right now, and she's the best. And I've known her since we were kids, and we're really, really, really close friends. Been through a lot together. And we were sitting on my back patio, just had a wonderful dinner, and we're goofing around and outside. And she goes like this, and she looks into my house. I go, "What's up?" She goes, "Something just moved in your house." You know what my reaction was? Normally, right? You're going to jump up and go in and see. I was like, man, whatever. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Just let it go. It's whatever it is. It's just doing its thing. It's not hurting us, And that's the way that I've kind of. Now you said that there were two others. What was the other experience?
So that one, like I told you, was in the early 90s. I had other little sightings here and there, but it wasn't until about I would say almost 2 years ago. I was jogging down the street here, my house again, and I had just gotten off the phone with someone from the History Channel, because they were featuring the videos on The Proof Is Out There. So I'm excited. I never had anything like this happen to me in my life, I call my friend, I'm telling him about it, I hang up the phone with him, and I'm walking on my way back. And it's about 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night. And I'm always looking up at the stars. I love looking up at the sky. I've been that way since I was little. I feel like I have a more connection with whatever's up there than here. So this is exactly how it went. I can't make this up. I really can't. I look up at the sky and I say out loud, I don't know who I'm talking to. I'm just talking to whatever. So I say, I haven't had a really profound experience like the last time, referring to the early 90s, the one I just told you. I say it just like this. I would love to see something like that again. But I said it not in a way where I was hoping to capture something to share it all over the place. I literally said it with the most pure intentions I could possibly say. Walking back to the house, I get to the corner of my block, and I caught a light in the corner of my eye. I thought it was a shooting star. So I quickly turned, trying to see if I can catch it. And I just missed it. I saw as soon as it went out. I was like, damn it. So I'm looking up, and I'm like, still, regardless, I like to say thanks for the show. I always say that. And as I'm looking up, I see it again. So I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, something is not right, because it was in the exact same spot, the exact same direction, and almost like if it was a copy of what I just saw. So I turned, thinking it was my reflection on my glasses. Maybe there was a car driving around. So I'm looking at some flashlight. I'm looking around, no cars on the road, nothing. So I look back up, and it happens again, a third time. And I was like, oh my God. So right instantly, I was like, this is not a shooting star. Shooting stars don't repeat the same pattern in the same spot in the middle of the sky. And this light was very, it wasn't natural. It looked more artificial. It was a very bright, artificial, fluorescent white light. And when it moved, it didn't just go straight. It kind of arced as it moved. So it did a small little arc. So instinctively, I pull my phone out, and I just hit record and point up. But I didn't look through my phone. I was just hoping if it happened again, I would catch something. Jimmy, I can't lie to you. It happened again 3 more times in the exact same spot, and I was able to catch 3 of those on film. But the odds of something like that happening, you have a greater chance of hitting the lottery back to back than you
Right.
walking in the middle of the night at 10:30 at night, looking up at a clear sky, saying something like that out loud. Nothing is listening, you know, and for that to happen, not 10 minutes after I said that, in that manner, I swear to you, not a person on this planet can tell me that not only is this not real, but it has, at least for me, was some kind of a response. It almost felt like it was just letting me know, listen, I'm paying attention to you.
Yeah, we have in my neighborhood here, okay, we have a private neighborhood watch app that one of the neighbors started maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And I get a letter in the mailbox from like my next door neighbor, or it was, you know, same street, right? And I see what it says, right? And it's blah 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 blah. It's the name of all the streets that are around here. It's like 4 that square. And so I opened it up and it was right there and it's like click here and sign in, and this is our neighborhood watch app. And you can load it into your phone. And I thought, oh, how cool is that? So I do it. And so every house, and I'm not kidding here, this is what's strange. Every house in the neighborhood is on this app. There isn't anybody that's not on it. Okay. We're all on it. And it goes off a few times a day. Anybody lose a cat? Anybody missing any mail, right? Amazon package misdelivered. Coyotes got in my trash last night. You know, it's always that kind of stuff, right? Okay, it's cool. But everybody is you know, paying attention and I dig it. And once in a while I'll post something, and we all do, and it's brought the neighborhood together, right? Okay. Except for Sunday night. And this is what happens. It's Sunday night. It's about, I don't know, it's dark. So it's like 9:00. Bing, and I see it, right? And it goes off so often. And it's always like, anybody missing a dog, right? Or my dog is out. And so I click on it and it says, I just videotaped this UFO right now. I'm like, holy crap, what? And I look and I click on the video, and it's, I don't want to say anything else. Anyway, it's the neighbor filming out while they're driving the car. You can hear the wind, the windows down, and filming out of the car, right? And there's a second video at the same time of the passenger filming the driver filming, and they're all filming the same thing. And so on one of the videos, you can see what's on the driver's phone. And then on the other, there's 2 videos, right? Anyway, so I look at the timestamp, and it was 2 minutes ago, the post. So I run outside and I'm looking, I didn't see anything, but the video was friggin' crazy. And this is the description. It says, it's moving so fast, but I tried to keep up with it. And that's the block in the message. And then the videos are about 3 minutes long, both of them, until it disappeared. And it was an orange ball with it's a little bit of shape to it. It wasn't like perfectly round, doing some pretty crazy stuff. Yeah. And these are my neighbors, right? It's not like it's just you and I or our community. This is somebody that is seeing something in the sky here in town and was compelled enough to do the video and then post it in our little neighborhood watch app. And it was crazy. It was crazy. I ran outside, man. I did. I was outside like, where is, I need to see this. Yeah, but pretty crazy that, you know, your neighbors are seeing the same things that we are.
I mean, they're all over. It's just, you know what? A lot of things I tell a lot of people is that we don't look, there's nothing for us to fear in the sky, so a lot of people don't bother looking up. But if you looked up, you eventually will see something that you're like, all right, what is that? The only problem now is with all the technology and these drones, it makes it very, very, very difficult. Not just that, but you got Starlink, and you see how many times people confuse that for UFOs. And then now you got AI. So now no video, you can really, honestly say, oh yeah, this is legitimate, because it's gotten so advanced that I've seen videos that are impossible to tell, a fake from reality. And that's a big, big problem with this subject, which is going to make it, oh my God, impossible to really dive into now. In my opinion, the most important ones are now the old, evidence, the earlier
Well,
evidence.
isn't that strange how the older cases are more compelling than the new cases? And but here's what I do enjoy about today, though. It's the multiple witness stuff. So you have the video, but it's seen by multiple people, and if you're lucky, you've got video from 2 or 3 locations. And that's what I find very interesting. And then we have the other part, and I'm going to ask you about this, and then I want to get over to the videos themselves that you released. Is that there is a ginormous amount of chatter going on right now about the James Webb Space Telescope. And I somehow knew in my bones when the James Webb unfurled and got in position, right, and everything was working, that it was too good. And it was going to see something that was going to shock everybody. And now that's where this conversation is, that we're tracking something that is on its way here to Earth. Do you think that that kind of support through science is also elevating and propping up what's going on in Congress and the Homeland Security videos? We know something is out there. There's got to be a ton of life, but it was only going to be a matter of time before science comes in and says, okay, there's something going on. What do you make of that?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because believe it or not, I actually was told this by a source of mine 2 years ago, and I posted it on my Instagram a few times to my followers, saying, watch out for the James Webb Telescope. There's going to be some major announcements in the near future. That was 2 years ago. And then I started seeing everything that was happening. That's when I was like, okay, my source, I can't question my source anymore. He's definitely telling me things that, I shouldn't know yet. But basically they've known already. And what I was told is that the James Webb was going to be used as a way to let the people know that they made a discovery, in a sense, but it's not something that they didn't know already. Like, this has already been known about for a while. I think they even knew about this with Hubble, and they just used the James Webb to confirm it or something like that. But apparently, what I was told was that they already knew of a planet that was harboring some kind of signs of life.
Right.
I'm not exactly sure what those signs were, but now with what I'm hearing, I think a couple of months ago they announced that some kind of organic traces were found on some planet, or some kind of gases. And another one, I heard something about some lights that were seen or being emanating from the planet. But I do have a feeling that James Webb is definitely going to play a very critical role when it comes to the announcement of a discovery. I think it's going to be first through James Webb, then the rest will follow along.
It's going to make it easy for the government to go, okay, we're not alone, because, and then give the reasons why, right? And be able to have the James Webb Space Telescope or some other scientific sensor system, whatever it may be, to do that for the government. And then we know that there's life out there, right? But trying to say that, or trying to have the government admit to secrecy over the last 70, 80 years or longer on this subject, that's a little more difficult to do. But science may do it for the government, and then it becomes a shell game. And then the target and the conversation is what's coming towards us, and not so much, okay, how long have you known about this, right? There's going to be way too much drama around this discovery of a techno signature or a craft out there being detected and tracked by the James Webb and other radio telescopes around the world.
Yeah, it's I don't like to jump the gun when it comes to things like that, because you know how it is. I think a lot of those theories are come up from the community once they hear about certain things. Like they just tend to create their own little imaginative realities, scenarios. Could it be just an asteroid? Maybe. Could it be something else? Possibly. I'm not going to believe it until it's actually here and I see it for myself, hovering over the planet or whatever. But
if it's being tracked to our star system coming in this direction, interstellar wise, that's you know what I mean? That's intelligence. Tracking a large asteroid or a rogue planet, and it's on our way. That's something altogether different, but the odds are there. It can happen, like Oumuamua, if that was indeed a space rock and not something extraterrestrial or an intelligence behind it. But if we're tracking something that is on its way here, that's crazy town, isn't it? And now I wanted to, staying on the same subject, these conversations that we're having today, this is nothing new to Puerto Rico. And why not only stuff in the sky, but the conversation about USOs and transmedium craft is now front and center just as much as a nuts and bolts flying saucer is. And we have this concentration of activity in and around Puerto Rico. Why?
Yeah, I don't know why it took, the public or the community so long to really dive into the whole USO thing. It's, at least to me, I always knew that whatever we were seeing in the sky was also what we were seeing under the waters. But for some reason, it was always a separate topic. But yeah, Puerto Rico is incredibly active area. So much so that, locals believe that there are bases off the coast. I've been shown satellite imagery off the coast of Aguadilla and north of the island of the Puerto Rico Trench. I think is the second deepest place in the world. And the one that I was shown off the coast of Aguadilla shows a structure sitting not that far off the coast on the floor, at the the ocean floor, that you can clearly see it's not anything natural. It looks artificial. It has a rectangular shape to it, and it's very long. The one north of the island at the bottom of the trench is very eerily similar in shape, but much, much longer. And it was sitting right at the bottom of the trench. And I forget how deep exactly it is, but it's very deep, like very, very deep. So the fact that, they see so much activity, that's why they say, there's got to be something down there, because we're seeing them coming in and out of the water so much. And case in point is 2013 Aguadilla footage, where they show the object not only flying over the land, it goes into the water, doesn't break speed, about 109, 110 miles per hour or so, goes right into the water, and then splits into two identical parts. And those both of those parts disappeared to two different directions in the water. But the interesting thing is when we met the leaker of those videos. For the first time, no one had interviewed him, no one knew who he was, and you could just imagine I was geeking out at that one. That's the one video I always talk to people about and always went to as a source of like, look, here's the proof. And to be standing there in front of this guy was like, wow, never thought I'd be in that position. But what was interesting, that what he told us was that the part of the video where you see it entering the water. So apparently that beach area, that location, number one, is north of the island, which is, like I told you, the trench is right there.
Yeah, the northwest corner.
Yeah. So what he told us though was that beach was a very popular fishing area, nighttime fishing for fishermen, and it's not an easy beach to get to. It's very, kind of out of the way, remote. The path to get there is very rough. So people just don't go there like that. You have to basically really trek in there to get to that beach. So what he told us was that fishermen eventually stopped going there because they were claiming to see, they call them los niños, the children, running on the shoreline in the middle of the night. And
what?
Yeah, small beings that they would call the children. And they would see the silhouettes of them moving around the beach at night, and they would see them going in the water, out of the water, and sometimes going in and not coming out. So that was interesting.
Mermaids. I knew it. Mermaids are real. See, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Maybe that's what Columbus saw. That's very interesting, right? Yeah. And that they would describe. I've never heard any stories about this, but the international airport is right there too, as well, right?
No, that's the international airport is San Juan.
But what's the airport that's up in the northwest corner?
That's Aguadilla Airport, Luis Hernandez Airport.
Right, and so this object went down just like parallel to the runways, right? And went down over the hangars, then out over the beach, and Homeland Security was filming it the entire time.
Yeah, I believe if I'm correct, the SCU had done the analysis. They mentioned how this object was first seen out in the ocean by radar. But they were picking something up that was moving, like it would appear in one location, disappear, and all of a sudden they'd get a hit miles away in another location. So I think the way they mentioned it is they thought there was something wrong with the radar and told the pilots to keep a lookout just in case. And that's when a light was seen coming towards the land and then shut off right before getting to land. And the FLIR operator then got on the camera to see if they could find something, and that's when they saw the object.
Now, your contact, was he part of Homeland Security? I don't want his name or anything like that, but how did he get the video?
Well, he was friends with the pilot and the two other individuals on board with the pilot. So there was 3 people on board this plane when this occurred. So once the plane landed, the pilot called him over and said, "You got to see this. I just caught something crazy." So he actually saw it from inside the craft first. And once he saw it, he was like incredibly like blown away and asked him if he can get a copy of that. And he was able to. Shortly
were they thinking crazy stuff, or were they trying, you know what I mean? What was their attitude at the time?
Well, they knew what they saw that was unbelievable because of what it did. It was one thing if it stood in the air, but this thing went into the ocean and split, which is, how do you explain that? Like, what is it? So they were definitely confused and like blown away by what they saw. We did find out that that footage they was confirmed to them. I believe it was a week or so later from Homeland Security, CBP, I believe, that it was confirmed to be anomalous. So that footage apparently was also not just being recorded on the plane, but apparently is being recorded simultaneously in two locations here in the United States. And I believe CBP is one, and then the FAA is the other.
Now, the 60-minute video, for those that haven't seen it yet, take us through that and what is in it.
So that occurred in Arizona, Tucson, Arizona. That was also captured by Department of Homeland Security. Actually, all the best videos have so far been from Department of Homeland Security, from the 2013 to the ones that I released. Which now, you know, could you imagine what else they got that they haven't released or they are sitting on? But the one that I released, the object, they call it the rubber duck because at one point, so when you look at it, it's difficult to tell in real time what it's doing. But when you speed it up and kind of track the object, you can see that the object's not only moving, but it's rotating as it's moving. So there's points where you'll see just that it's one solid blob, but it's because you're seeing the underside, I guess, of it. And as it rotates, then you'll see that it has a second part to it, a smaller part. And when that's visible, that's where you get that, you know, rubber duck look to it, because you have the bottom part that's a little larger, and then you have this small little orb that's attached to it somehow. They couldn't figure out exactly how this part was attached to the object, but it was moving in unison with the larger object. And they were spanning the landscape, just, you know, doing what they do, looking for drug smugglers or, you know, people crossing the border illegally. And this object came into view. So as they're spanning the landscape, all of a sudden this thing comes into view. And the interesting thing is that it was emitting no heat. It was ice cold. So there was no indication that this thing had any kind of propeller, anything like that. A friend of mine, Dave Fouch, he's a 20-plus FLIR technician, assisted in the analysis with the SCU. He did multiple experiments with his FLIR equipment to show what mylar balloons look like, what latex balloons look like, what birds look like. And people understand that, you know, those cameras are amazing. You get so much incredible detail when you look through them. Like if it's a bird, you're gonna know it's a bird. You know, if it's a dog, you're gonna know it's a dog, even from a distance. Like in one of the videos, the Bruja, you see cattle way out in the distance, and they're clear as day.
Yeah.
That you see their cattle. But this object that was flying over them, you couldn't tell what it was. There was no shape to it. Again, it was emitting no heat. There was clearly no sound because it didn't startle the cattle, and because this was actually taken at night. So if it was kind of a drone or anything like that, it would have startled the cattle. But they made absolutely zero reaction to this object as it flew over them. And those two were separate videos. That the Bruja one occurred in near the Tohono O'odham Indian Reservation, but that object was very similar to the object that was captured in the rubber duck. SCU actually at one point admitted it to me after I showed them the similarities. The beginning, they really didn't think it was the same, but once I sent them my own little analysis, eventually they wrote back to me and they're like, you know what, I think you're right. I'm seeing these similarities as well. So now both of those objects is believed to have been the same object, just in two different, you know, scenario, two different dates.
Yeah, and the rubber duck video, I never, I mean, for myself, because I watched that thing, man, a zillion times, just like everybody did, right? And I never could resolve it in my own mind. I found it completely compelling. But what I definitely found interesting is that people are going to see what they're going to see. right? You're not going to, and you can't, right? And the the theories and the ideas coming in from everybody that was watching the video were as varied and as infinite as you can imagine. People were seeing what they were going to see, and they weren't seeing what I thought I was seeing. It was very interesting to me. The wide range of opinions that were there, and nobody was changing their minds.
And I mean, it was one of the more disappointing things, because I was getting a lot of that from people that I thought would take their time to doing real analysis, and they didn't. And there's one name in particular that, you know what, I'll just tell you the story if you have the time. Lou Elizondo reached out to me, and when I got those videos through a mutual friend who knew him and informed him of what I had when I first got my hands on it. He called me directly, and we had a conversation. Expressed massive interest. Told me that he was going to get in contact with Chris Mellon. That he was going to, go through on CNN. I mean, listen, I don't want to talk bad about the guy because he is doing good for the subject. But from my own personal experiences, I unfortunately did not have a very positive experience with Lou. I don't know why. Still don't understand it to this day, because it's not like I did anything. I didn't do anything to the guy. Fortunately, he continued to give me the runaround and kind of like hanging a carrot in front of me type of thing. And I eventually got the impression like he was kind of stalling me from releasing the videos publicly. So I called him out on it. I'm Puerto Rican from fucking New York, excuse my language. But I was like, once I saw I was like, yo, Lou, like, what the fuck? So I don't think he was very happy with that, because I called him out on it. But I mean, you gotta, put yourself in my shoes. I'm over here getting fed this information from him, telling me that, yeah, he wants to work with me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not looking at it because it's Lou. I'm looking at it because I have this. Now Lou's interested. What better way of getting this out there like that and getting the attention it deserves than through Lou? But unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way. And I know I'm going to get a lot of crap from people that, are head over heels for the guy. Again, I'm not talking crap about him. I'm only relaying my experience. Lou, again, he's done amazing things for the community, amazing things for the subject. I recognize that. But unfortunately, when I finally released the videos, before I did that, he had done a talk with Max Moscovich over in, it was overseas somewhere. There was some kind of event going on or something like that. And he was there with him. They were talking. San Marino, I think it was, something like that. And he did a live, and I mentioned the videos. This is before I called him out. And I told him, SCU just did the analysis. They confirmed that this object's authentic. Mind you, there's an NDA on this. Lou did not see the videos. I never showed them to him. He claimed to have seen them. So I was like, that's odd. How did you see them? He was like, yeah, you know what, you're right. That, the object is legitimate, this and this and that. So I was like, all right, that's interesting. So what happened was I recorded that. When I finally released the videos, I think it was The Sun did the first article on it and had used a clip of that video where Lou had mentioned that and included it in the article. And I have that copy. I screenshotted it because I was excited. I couldn't, I didn't think I would ever be in this position, Right. And I'm looking at it like I'm doing something positive for this subject. Then all of a sudden, I go back to that article, and it was changed. And they changed Lou's part. They removed Lou's part, and then included a comment by Lou stating, that he believed they were balloons. And that got me incredibly upset because I gave him the opportunities to analyze that video. I gave him the means of seeing it for himself, and he never took it. He never did. So for him to have done that, it left a bad taste in my mouth, because it's like, why? Like, why? And I mean, I don't know if he's going to listen to this or someone's going to bring it up to him after after this show airs or whatever, but he knows what I'm saying is the truth. It's unfortunate that it happened the way it did, but that was my experience with that whole thing. And it was very, what's the word? It was
disappointing.
It was
Yeah,
very
it's disappointing. It's disappointing. And here's the thing with all of that. You're right. Lou and others that are allowing this conversation to reach a wider audience and so forth, you have to commend that. And I appreciate that. All right. Lou is also fighting the polarization that happens. So you've got two sides of the fence now, and you have to really, when the more visible you get, the more critique you're going to have, and the bigger the magnifying glass is. And you've got to keep your shit straight. You can't mess it up. You're going to get caught. So Lou's finding that out right now, as does everybody with this subject. It is a very, very sensitive subject. And then that leads me to my next statement, and I believe this to be fact. Lou doesn't know anything. Okay? He doesn't. He doesn't know anything. He hasn't been on board a craft. He hasn't been at an airplane, at a hangar of some secret facility and gone up and touched something. No, he hasn't. You wouldn't know his name if he had. Okay, so now he's pushing for disclosure, and he has been working at this for a while, just like the rest of us have. All right, fantastic. But he's not the keeper of the secrets. He's not. And so you can't elevate your position beyond that. Right now, he's the guy that's out there trying to get answers for the community and for himself. Fantastic. But you can't change that position. So, no, he's not the keeper of the secrets. He doesn't know the secrets. He doesn't know the people who are. He doesn't. Or you wouldn't know his name. He wouldn't be out there talking in public. And that's where it's at. So something like this, where Lou spoke out of turn because, you get all wrapped up in it and the subject comes up. Oh, yeah, I saw those videos when he hadn't. Well, people are going to catch you. And that's why that article was probably edited and corrected. And unfortunately, that kind of stuff happens all the time, Andy.
Well, trust me, he knew what he was doing. He knew. That's why it was difficult for me to be like, oh, maybe it was just this, or trying to, like, we had plenty of conversations back and forth. Like,
yeah, so I've had many conversations with Lou. I know exactly what you're saying. So, what's next with this for you, though? And let me help you with framing this question. I've seen what I've seen, right? Nothing is going to change my own experiences. And that's what drives me. That's my journey. And you have now gone through your experiences. So how do you intend to push this forward?
Well, I'm just riding the wave, honestly, because, I look at it like what's happening in my life, or what's happened or led me to this point has, I guess you could say, was supposed to happen, because yeah, I look back at my past with this and how I experienced what I experienced and did all this research and was so passionate about it and talking to people and went through all these negative experiences before all this, to then find myself standing in front of the guy who leaked this video, to be in a documentary, to land those videos. Like, I mean, I look back at that and I say to myself, there's just no way any of this was coincidence. It's just impossible. Like, that's just, I'm saying that from my own perspective and experiences. I just can't see that being something that just happened. It feels like it literally was supposed to happen in this manner, because here I am now talking to you. I never thought I'd be talking to you, you know, or,
Right.
or any of the other people I've spoken to.
Well, like Darcy Weir too, as well. And you go and you put together these movies. Where how do you look at Darcy? Are you guys on the same wavelength and are simpatico? And what's it like to work with him?
Darcy's actually the only reason why I work with Darcy or even chose to help him. I don't even say I work with him. I always say to Darcy, I'm helping you out. Like, if you need my help, I'll help you. Is because I see that Darcy's on the same path, trying to get the information out correctly, unbiased, without, adding in any of this extra nonsense, and also debunking on the way, because I do that a lot too. I not just want to share information regarding the phenomenon, but I also want to educate people on how to spot a fake, or how to realize you're looking at flares, military flares. I see people confusing military flares all the time, So I make my little videos to teach people this is what military flares look like. These are the characteristics, what to look for. Or if I see a video that even fooled me at one point and then find information that proves it's fake, I do my I guess you could say my due diligence to inform the public as best as I can. He's the same way, just on a different path, but we're both going to the same destination. And I do respect what he does. I respect how he does it, and I respect why he does it, honestly. And I'm not saying this because he's now my friend or anything like that. It's just, this is what I've seen from him since I met him, since he reached out to me and wanted to do that section with me in the first documentary. I got that sense from him, and it made me feel comfortable to work with him, because I realized that he's doing this for the right reasons. So,
Yeah. He's got a lot of energy to continually crank out these documentaries, because it takes a lot of work to do that, and a lot of patience. And I've known Darcy now, I suppose, I don't know exactly, but maybe 5 years, maybe 6. And looking at the way that he has developed his connections, it's impressive to me, because he's like a bloodhound, right? And once you pick up that scent, and Darcy Weir's on the case, he's going to get answers that satisfy him. But remember, those answers only lead to more questions and lead to another documentary. That's the way that this is. It's a very strange thing that we find ourselves in. James Fox is another great example of that. He's got another film that's about to drop, and I've seen it, and it's good. I'm in it too, by the way. I got a little spot in that thing, and it's going to be a great film because of my 5 seconds in the film. But the point is, there's an audience out there for this stuff. People want answers now, and I think that they feel lied to. Is maybe that's the best way to put it. And it wouldn't necessarily be all the government's fault, because we have our educational system, and you also have the media involved too as well. But the world is kind of feeling that, not only on the UFO issue, but on a lot of stuff. right? And do you think that that's what it comes down to? Is the world is like feeling like they're not being told the truth? Lie's a heavy word, but that may be what it is, right?
I mean, eventually, regardless if, people want to say we need our governments, and I agree, humanity needs some kind of leadership. We can't just let everybody do what they want to do. Unfortunately, we're just not this kind of species to live that way. But I think we've gotten to that point where a lot of people are waking up to the bull, like they're starting to see what's happening. And they're seeing that from their everyday life. Their struggles on just trying to survive, their struggles on trying to raise a child or own a home or, just live, and when you get to that point, people start waking up, then they start to realize, okay, what do we have you here for if you're not doing anything for me? You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So when you include this subject now, of course it's going to be the way it is, where people have no trust for them because they're already getting screwed with everything else. So why would they trust you now with this? Especially when now this information is coming out. The only thing that I will say is concerning to me, and again, I say this based off personal experience, and you can possibly agree with what I'm going to say, is everybody wants this truth, but I personally do not think they're going to be ready for the truth that they want.
What do you? Okay. It's always be careful what you wish for, right? Do you think that the government will stop doing this, or something will have to happen to force them into more straight or correct dialogue? I keep wanting to use the word lie, but I think the word lie is a bit harsh.
Well, but we've been lied to. I mean, we've been lied to for a long time, and and that's proof of that was when Lou came out and all this stuff started happening. Because they denied it. Denial, is a form of lying in a sense. When you're saying, "Oh, it's not true," and then the truth comes out, it's a lie.
Yeah, but see, okay. So does the government lie to us, or do religions lie to us? And you kind of got to look at it this way a little bit. And it's like this: you need to, if you look at governments and religion or anything, kind of like parents, where they kind of got to raise a family, and you know what? Sometimes you're gonna lie, right? And because, and I just look at it, me as a parent, right? Man, I lied to my daughters all the time, right? I did. You have to. You can't mess with their heads, And yeah, and I rode that Santa Claus thing for as long as until I got busted, right? But maybe that type of control is outgrown itself. We have way too much access to information and ways to communicate to each other immediately. So that old school way of doing things simply is not going to work anymore. And we've got to figure out another way. You don't want to get caught in the lie. You don't want to get caught. You know what happened, man, when you wrecked your parents' car and you lied and got away with it for a little bit, and then suddenly you got caught? And he's like, how did you know about that? We all did that, right? And that sucks when you get caught. Or, just tell me the truth and it'll be all right. Just tell me the truth and it'll be all right. Well, that if the government comes out with this kind of truth right now, I would like to say that the world can handle it. I don't know if the government can handle it. And what possibly could happen after that.
So okay. So if you want to cover the topic, you have to cover it. Or if you want to cover it correctly, you have to look at all angles of the phenomenon, right? Everyone always talks about the technology. Everybody always talks about what these things can do and all this stuff. That's always a topic of conversation. Or, every now and then the biological side of it with the beings and things like that. But unfortunately, there is a darker truth to it too that isn't really talked about. One famous case is Guarapingara, which happened in, I believe, the 80s in Brazil. And it was the case of the human mutilation of the individual that was discovered next to that riverbank. And when I first saw it, it's before I had my Instagram and all this, I was doing my own research. The moment I saw those photos of that body, instantly, I was like, this is the exact same thing that's happening to the cattle. It just happened to this guy. Cattle mutilation damage that we've seen here in the United States and around the world is identical with what happened to this individual. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I never came across anything like this that involved humans. That was it's the only case that I can think of that was made public, and that's because it occurred in Brazil, and they don't have the same, I guess, rules in regards to letting this stuff out the way we do. And the interesting thing is that everything was released. I mean, you have the unedited photos that show the body clear as day with all the damage and what was done to him, and you have the coroner's report. So that was the first time I was open to that side of things. Then I started hearing other stories of certain things that were occurring that involved humans. And I came across a documentary called, I believe it was Silent Killers.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, okay. So that out of all of this, you have E.T. the extraterrestrial, right? M&Ms or Reese's Pieces and Phone Home. You have that cute side of stuff, right? And I get that. And people outside of this community can handle that version of ET. The face peelers in Peru, right? Or the idea of human mutilation, that stuff ain't going to play. That version of the story will be held back if it does exist. And I would say, I'm sure it does. There was, I'm glad you brought this up. I'm not going to say his name. I'm not going to do it. But there was a researcher out of the United Kingdom for years that covered this subject. And I'm going to tell you, it was a very difficult path for him, not only with the internet and regulations and banning and his videos, but it was also the media and the government and everything else. And man, it was a difficult road. People don't want that part of the story. You can have cattle mutilations all day long, right? But bring humans into the conversation, and that's people don't want to hear that.
I mean,
that's that's a primal fear.
Well, I mean, it's the thing with that is we're a very proud race. We're the most dominant species on this planet. So to think of the fact that there's something else out there that might be treating us the way we treat everything else here, oh no, that can't happen because we think so highly of us. You understand? And that's something that if people really want to accept this, they're going to have to accept the fact that we are not the dominant race in this universe. We're not. Maybe on this planet, maybe not even on this planet.
Right.
We just believe we are based off the fact that, do what we do and live on land and have houses and technology. But we might be sharing something right now with a species that may have been here much longer than us, that is way more advanced, just wants nothing to do with us. It keeps its distance, But we have that pride in us that this can't happen to us. Oh, and that's where we get the notion of the whole evil thing. But it's funny because we murder living beings all the time, every single day, just so you can have food in your house. We slaughter everything, just for a Chinese or whatever have shark fin soup. Look what they do. They don't care about the rest of the body. They were just chopping off the fins and throwing the rest right in the water. They could care less about the life of that animal, and they were doing it they're doing it by the millions every day. Every year.
Yeah, here's my counter to that. Although that's wrong, right? That's a big bowl of wrong. It's just uncomfortable for me to think about. But you know what else sucks? A baby gazelle running from a lion in the savannah and gets its butt smacked by that claw, right? And becomes dinner. That's a bad day. Right? That's a bad day.
I got one.
You know what I mean?
I got one better for you. I always use this one as an example, but I use this as an example to explain how another being out there is not going to view our notion of good and evil the way we do. Okay, you just brought up a lion going after a gazelle, right? Think about the fact that lions, right? You have the main lion with his pride. If another lion comes to challenge that lion and wins, what does that lion do?
He's abandoned. That's a bad day.
Not just that, it's a bad day for all of his offspring. Because he doesn't.
Are they kicked out too?
He kills them.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He finds his offspring.
Is that true? Is that true?
That's what they do. He doesn't want his line. He kills his offspring and then remates with the females to create a new line of his line. So think about that. And but the reason why I say that is because the females in that pride, it's not like they call the lion police.
No.
They accept it because that's just the way it is. You're not looking at this.
Did you say lion police? Oh man. Oh, but yeah. And so if you flip that over to the situation with ET, I think that we as a planet are right on the verge of getting rid of, we're maturing, of getting rid of some really bad habits. Okay. Now, if we do that and we achieve this next stage in evolution, we truly did it in a very short period of time. All right. Last ice age, 10, 12,000 years ago. And, real science, real technology, real stuff, 300 years, right? Electricity for 100 years. And so, but we're still having wars and we're still building nuclear weapons and all that. But what I'm suggesting here is that we are right on the edge of going, okay, the party's over. It's time for us to start to grow up. And I would like to think that ET has already gone through this. And I don't think that the majority of the civilizations out there, of which there are trillions, if they are advanced enough to get here, they don't have bad intentions. I really want to think that way, because if they did, I think that we would know that.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because in our documentary, we spoke to an individual in Puerto Rico named Andres Maldonado. He told us a story that honestly is probably one of the most incredible stories I've ever heard of someone's personal experience with this. He claimed to have met face to face a being who looked human. He identified himself to Andres as Amaron, Amaron. Andres basically said he looked like of Indian descent, but he was an Indian, like, caramel complexion, dark hair, and apparently had a decent interaction with this being through some time. Interesting still is how this name was actually mentioned by other Puerto Ricans in other cases around the island, or near that area of the island, that mentioned that same name of this person. So it's not the first time this individual named Amaron has presented himself or been in contact with other individuals of that island, which is very interesting. There's a very famous case from 1988 with an individual called Amaury Rivera, who, again, in my opinion, is one of the most important and compelling cases due to the fact that this individual is able to take clear photographs of the craft that supposedly abducted him, and military Air Force jets buzzing this disc up. Clear photos. But the fact that he mentioned that same name as well from one of the beings that he described the exact same way being on the craft that presented himself to him isn't. I mean, honestly, that's pretty amazing, because that's information that when you put the pieces together tells you something really happened and this individual is real in some form or fashion. But what's interesting, and what the point I want to make up is, you brought up the fact of us accelerating and getting to this point so quickly. So he told us that in a conversation he had with this individual, that he mentioned to him how their race achieved the level of technology and the level of consciousness and all this that they achieved through time. That their race is not a violent race. So they achieved what they achieved through means of peace, but it took them a very long time to get there. Many, many millions, whatever, so years, right? He stated that we are going to get to the exact same level that they're at in a much shorter time frame through pain and suffering.
Well,
So
it has to be that way, though. Andy, as harsh as that is to say, how do you know what good is if you don't experience bad? Right? If you lived in a world of nothing but good stuff, then how do you know what bad is? Now, so it's all good. So now you've got a level of how good is too good, right? This is half good. You're still going to have that scale. You've got to go to the brink. You've got to go to the edge of the cliff and take a peek and know where not to go. You've got to experience the bad so you know what not to do. That's it. And I know it sounds harsh, but that still has to occur out there in the cosmos. I'm sure that there's bad ETs out there. For sure. Yeah.
And not bad in the sense of like evil, but bad in the sense that they may be a little violent.
Have you seen Galaxy Quest?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a bad race. Remember his hair?
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? That it's just a way of life. It's a numbers game. That's all. But I would say that it has to be a situation where you are going to achieve just enlightenment, in that knowledge and a positive outlook is ultimately, and love, right, is ultimately what bliss is and what drives the universe. And that's it. And so if you have the ability to get here, you've already evolved. And that's my take. I could be wrong. I used to say I walk around with flowers hanging out of my pocket, but I could be dead wrong on this. I could, but we have an example of one. I haven't seen I haven't seen really bad stuff.
I don't think you're wrong though. I mean, because if you consider the fact that there are multiple races out there, then each one of them got to their point in a different way. Maybe some did in a positive way and never experienced bad, which is why they're scared coming here, because they see how fucked up we are, you know? Or maybe you have other ones that did experience that to get to where they're at, you know? I mean, I'm pretty sure, you know, you have all different types. It is possibly why you have so many sightings of different craft. You know, people talk about ET and they generalize that word, but again, when you think about it logically, if there are multiple, then they're all also going to be at different stages of technological advancement, which is why you might see certain crafts doing this craziness, and then you got another one that could phase in and out, and you're like, all right, what's that? And got another one that could stop on a dime and shoot off, you know, possibly it's different types of technology, you know. That's why also, you know, I kind of say when people are like, oh, if they're so advanced that they get here and they can get all the way over here, why do they crash? Well, they're not perfect. That doesn't make them perfect. You understand? They're still susceptible to things going wrong. You know what I mean? So
I do. Well, if we look at technology for us, for millions of years, and Homo sapien sapien, 200,000 years, you know, this version of us, allegedly. Okay, so let's just go with that. 200,000 years. So minus 100 years, okay, to 1940. So that's 80 years. So 200,000 years minus 80 years. So what is that? 192,000 years, right? Is that right? Am I saying this correctly? So for 192,000 years, ET could arrive here and not get detected. No radar, no satellites, no electricity, right? And before that, what bows and arrows, muskets, right? So they could come and go, no problem. Now ET knows it's not that kind of party. So it's got to be an interdimensional aspect. There's got to be some stealth action going on. There's got to be some wormholes, a folding of space, or faster than light travel, because we can detect them and we can find out when they are coming in and out of our atmosphere. So therefore, they would have to do it differently than they did before 1940. That's it. And so, of course, we're seeing something different in the skies than we did 50 years ago, 70 years ago.
They're adapting.
They have to. Otherwise, we'd be shooting at them. Right?
Actually, no, we do. Unfortunately,
yeah, right.
It happened.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the other things. What do you make of a very, you touched upon this, but I want to go deeper. Nobody's experiences in a general sense are the same. They're seeing different things in the sky. They're seeing different types of beings. They're having completely different experiences. And it would have to be that way, right? There's so much life out there. Why would we expect to see only Ford Pintos?
I mean, it's tricky because, you know, you do have your legitimate cases where people have documented and seen, you know, very odd things, different creatures and things like that. But it's also hard because you have a lot of individuals out there who aren't really of sound mind, you know, and are easily influenced by imagination. And I mean, I use this for example. I get people sending me videos and pictures all the time, and they ask me if I can help them, you know, try to identify what it might be, or they think that they caught something. And unfortunately, a lot of times I got to tell them, I don't think you got anything. It might just be this or that. But I had one time, and I'm not saying this to make fun of this individual. I'm just using it as an example. They sent me a picture, and it sounds funny. I laughed, but I took the matter serious. Where this individual told me they thought they'd capture a pterodactyl on camera, right? Like it took a picture of a pterodactyl. So I was like, okay. I still, again, I'm only laughing because it is kind of funny, I mean, when you think about it.
I want to hear the rest of the story.
I know pterodactyl is big, So I get the picture, and it's this smudgy object, right? With sharp little edges and things like that. And I realize it's a bird in motion, right? So, but this person, this is what they believed. They believed that they caught a pterodactyl. Okay, so again, now I'm not trying to make fun of the person. I'm using this as an example to show that some people, unfortunately, and this is not to put anybody down, but they don't have that level of discernment and education to be able to properly analyze things, to properly put things into perspective in a grounded based way, to come up with logical conclusions. So that's where you get this craziness of people believing things like that, because unfortunately that's just the way their mind is wired. It's not their fault, even though it could be a little frustrating because it muddies the water and we get this view that we're all crazy and we're tinfoil hat wearers. But unfortunately, that's just people's realities because their minds are wired in that way to view these things, and they don't have the ability to just sit back and say, okay, did I really see a pterodactyl? Like, I mean, really? They don't have that. They go based off of what they're seeing and assume that's what it is, and they stick to it. And that's what makes this subject so difficult and why it's so hard to dive into experiences, because unfortunately you do come across that a lot.
Well, and you also have to be at the right place at the right time, because sometimes these things happen in less than a second. And if you're looking this way and it's going on over here, that's it. It never happened, right? The tree falling in the woods, as an example. And I'll tell you, I mean, to this day, this is crazy to me. I'm driving on a road coming down into the valley. It's called Latuna Canyon. If you know LA, you know this road. It's a very famous road, and it's a winding mountain road, comes down into the valley. And so from Latuna Canyon, you can see the whole San Fernando Valley in front of you. Burbank, North Hollywood, Van Nuys, Woodland Hills, Encino, Studio City, Granada Hills, Calabasas. You just see it all. It's beautiful. And so coming down the hill, got the sunroof open. It's 10:30 at night, 10:24 to be exact. There's a reason why I know this. And sunroof is open. Mountain road. I'm looking at the valley, and my better half sitting next to me, Rita, she goes, "What is that?" And so I look at her. Now I'm driving on a mountain road. You got to concentrate. But I look over at her and I see her looking up out of the sunroof over my shoulder. So I look down at the road, then I look up and I see, in an instant, I see this white ball of light go over the sunroof, and it comes right down the center of the windshield and crashes in downtown Van Nuys. Now, I expected an explosion. It was like that. Okay? Nothing happened. And I look down at the clock. I see it's 10:24, and I call MUFON. Okay? Call my friend over at MUFON. Dude, I just saw this. Now, this is what I expected. So I did that. And then we rush home to get home in time for the 11 o'clock news, expecting expecting, Andy, this to be all over the news, right? It would have to be. It wasn't. And it wasn't the next day, and it wasn't on the internet, and it wasn't in the LA Times. Nobody saw anything. Now, you have to just step back. Now, the valley is full of them. It's 1 million people, right? Probably more. 10:30 at night. How could nobody have seen that? I don't get it. I don't get it. And I think that is an example of what goes on all the time around the world. You know, how many people in the valley, when this went down, weren't looking up? They were looking down, or they're driving, or they're looking the opposite direction, and they don't see it. The other thing is, what was it? You know, I watched it go right into the county courthouse. Right? It was like downtown Van Nuys. I don't know. It's a hard thing to explain. And it wasn't a reflection or anything. I saw it. The sunroof was open, right? So I saw it go through the sky. I saw it come down through the center of the windshield. I saw the whole thing. Nothing in the news. Nothing. Just incredible. I still can't explain it.
But do you see how you I like to look at this in people when they tell stories. Like, for example, like what you just did. I like to see myself based off of what I experienced. And again, I know I just said what I said in regards to people and believing what they want to believe, but mine's actually had some kind of real proof come my way years later that verified what I saw was legitimate, right? But when I tell my story, I say it with a passion because I know I know that this was real. This was there, and I know what I saw, all this stuff. So, for example, like you, when you tell your story, I look at myself in someone telling a story because that's what tells me, okay, this person did see something. They don't know what it is, but they saw it. You understand? It makes it real to me, even though I wasn't there, because I'm seeing the passion that you're saying it with, which means that something happened that you witnessed that gets you that excited, gets you that riled up to tell the story, which to me, that's what, at least those are the signs that I look at when I listen to people tell me things, because that's what to me tells me that what they experienced was real, that there was some truth to what they're telling.
Right. And about the confirmation is what's crazy in this story. So it's not in the news. It's not in anything. And I was checking it for about, a few days or a week. And then it just becomes a memory, right? It's just like a story, whatever. And then about a week later, I was with a group of people and I heard them say, "Did anybody see that meteor last week?" I was like, "When?" Sunday night or whenever it was, right? Where it came up, and we thought that it crashed in Sunland. Really? And that was, now I didn't go any further than that, but I thought that was pretty interesting. Sunland was in the general area, right? It's, 5 miles south, but pretty interesting, right? And so, what does that do? Well, they called it a meteor. I call it a white ball, right? You're going to see what you're going to see, and that's the way your brain works. That part of it is fine. What I liked about it was I wasn't seeing things.
Confirmation. Yeah. It's like basically the exact same thing that happened with me years later when that person reached out to me. So it feels good because it's that information you need, that validation that, okay, I wasn't seeing things. I did see it because this person saw it too. So it feels good.
Well, I like I said, I know that my house is haunted, right? I know that I've seen that. I don't need to be pushed over the edge into crazy town. I don't need it. I don't want to know. I don't want to catch it on video. I don't want to catch it on tape. I don't want to see it. I just no. I don't. The one time, and I'm still uncomfortable with this. The one time that I saw an orb, I'm not going to get into the whole story right at the end of the show, but I'm with about 75 people at night in this field. And I see this gray orb come down. And it's pretty big. And I'm looking at it. I rub my eyes. It's in the dark, right? And I kind of rub my eyes like this. I look again. And at that moment, I thought it was my imagination. This lady behind me goes, "Is anybody looking at that gray orb out there?" I was like, "You mean this shit is real? What?" And yeah. And then I heard in the dark, I heard everybody, talking about it going out. I could hear everybody go, "Wow, look at that. Look at that." I didn't dig it, man. I didn't dig it. I didn't need that kind of confirmation. I wish she would have kept her mouth shut.
No, I know the feeling. But it's, I accept it. I used to be afraid of all this stuff, but I realized that's why I don't, like when you say, "Oh, there's bad aliens," I don't look at it that way anymore. To me, bad and good is same, two sides of the same coin. You have to have light with darkness. You can't have one without the other. You know what I mean?
Yin and yang. Yep.
Yeah. Yes. A yin and yang thing. So that's why I say, like, I think the notion of good and evil is just a human thing. It's the way we perceive bad things, or people that do bad things, or things that do bad things, but I don't believe there's a real bad and evil. Like even in religion, and I know, this is the end, I'm not going to take long, but I used to be religious, but now I don't look at it the way I did before. I believe in something bigger. Absolutely. There has to be. Is it the way most of humanity views it? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But I look at it like, in a sense, the best way I could put it is like God and the devil are the same thing. It's like when we are fighting with ourselves, if like we're about to do something bad and we know it, and we're having that battle in our mind of whether to do it or not. Maybe it's the exact same thing, but just on a grander scale, where the good side is separate from the bad. You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Like,
I do.
Yeah, like that. That's the way I see
Well,
it.
It's weird how. Okay, so we have 8 billion people on this planet. Okay, 7.9 billion of them have a God and a religion. Okay, with absolutely zero proof, only a story. Okay, but to believe in aliens is crazy.
Yeah.
That's the nutty thing to me. It's like, absolute. We've got all the proof that we need about life in the universe, and you want to call me crazy, And that's, and I think that we're growing up from that, though. I do. I think that we're growing up. Not that there isn't a God, but I think that there or somebody's idea of a God, but something intelligent that is behind the grandness and the majesty of the universe. Yes. And if you want to call that intelligence God, that's fine. We've got too many different versions of religions out there, and they all can't be right, but they have the right idea. Right? Does that make sense? That's right. That's right. So there you go. I'm not a spiritual guru, not even close. I'm far from being perfect. Trust me on that. But there's too much perfection in what life is and how it's created, that there has to be something else driving it and designing it behind it. I don't think it's chemistry and nature and particles doing its thing. No. But is it what the religion that we're taught? I say not so fast. Where can everybody see Transmedia, Mandy?
I Apple TV, I know it's on there. Vudu, Vimeo, I believe. It's not yet on Prime, but those are the three that I know of 100% that it's on.
All right, we'll get all the links out there for everybody. It's a great documentary. Everybody go and check it out. Andy, thank you so much, and I look forward to our next conversation, my friend. Great night on the show.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy. Have a great night. Be safe out there. Andy Marciel, I've got links below. We've got them up in the chat and also on social media and over on the website. And tomorrow night on the show, that's right, Eben Alexander is with us. Tomorrow night, NDEs. Yeah, and we're going to be talking about his best-selling book, Proof of Heaven. Until tomorrow night, all I've got to say is go back, Lee Tappy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go back, Lee Tappy.